Yeah, we're here.
Yay! Episode 200 of the Grumpy Dungeon Masters podcast.
Yes. We decided to take some time away from Overwatch, stomp in top 500 lobbies to have all four of us be here for the 200 episode 4-year anniversary, rolling it all into one, even though it's really not the 4-year. It's kind of midway point between the podcast and the stream and all that stuff. So,
Yeah, the math worked out weird.
yeah.
Yeah, honestly, we've done more than 200 episodes because we've had a lot of guest episodes, but this is the 200th episode of just me and Chris, and at this point, I guess regulars.
And friends.
And friends, yes.
Hey guys.
So I'm Grumpy Dungeon Master Christopher. That's Grumpy Dungeon Master Jay.
And our friends Kristian and Dan are joining us again.
Hello.
Yay. Because we're close. It's been 4 years. We're low on content, so we need to drag other people in, steal their content.
Yes. Actually, okay, so we started this thing 4 years ago because we were stuck at home during COVID, bored, and wanted something to do.
I also had a lot of father issues, like all other.
All right.
No,
Back on
two white guys making a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, big surprise there. So I wanted to ask each and every one of you guys, and I'll give you a chance to think about it. In that 4-year time period, what game or content or anything of that nature have you guys come across that it has just sort of changed your view on gaming, or it's something that you utilize just constantly for your current games? So as an example, for me, I would have to say Dungeon Crawl Classics. While I don't run it constantly, it is a game that I've only found in the last 4 years, even though I know it's way older than that. But I came across it probably 2021 or something. And that was at the same time that the old school revival revolution was really starting to pick up steam. And then they had the OGL scandal, which sort of fired it off even more than that. But ever since I found that game, it sort of led me into the whole OSR thing that I'm really much more invested into at this point than, say, Dungeons and Dragons, which is all Chris actually plays or runs.
I mean,
Yeah.
So, is there anything? And like Dan, I know you use the saddlebags thing all the time.
Yeah. I really love Griffin McCauley's Griffin's Saddlebag. A little shout out to him. He makes the best custom, unique magic items I've ever seen. If I can help it, I don't put generic ass +1 blah blah blahs in my game. I find something cool and I put it in the game that's thematic and it has some sort of special ability, and the art on it is just as good, if not better, than the art that is in the DMG for each given magic item, but in the same style. It's watercolored, and he did Kickstarters for having magic item cards for God knows whenever I'm going to actually play in person and hand out these cards. But it always feels nice when you get to have a physical card and somebody hands you something. It's like, hey, you find this magic weapon. It's not just a +1 sword. It's a cool thing that does this unique ability that may not come up all the time, but you can surprise me when I forget about it 65 sessions later and you pull it out of your back pocket. That and Kristian actually turned me on to Our Better Monsters, which is by the guy goes by the username Oh Hi Mark, and he has definitely redefined how I run higher level games, like 10th level and above, like because I got really tired of just monsters in D&D 5e just being a sack of freaking hit points that maybe has an ability, like maybe make it take 40 points of damage and you're maybe poisoned if you actually fail your DC 13 saves. Like, okay, this is lame. And like all the demons end up just being the same thing except with a different skin. Devils too, and just they're boring. They're just really boring. And his stuff is kind of put a little more life into my games, and I've been using his stuff for probably the last year and a half now. And I actually just used one of his monsters just 10 minutes ago, and I wrapped up my second session of Throne of Bloodstone.
Oh, sweet.
So I ended up using his Vampire Blood Exarch stats, where like It's basically the supernatural flying vampire that has swirling blood around him that he's just pulling out of other people. He's rather than just casting a dominate person, he's doing something where he's blood puppeteering somebody. He's actually physically controlling them to do stuff by manipulating their blood, and anybody who takes necrotic damage around him gets absorbed into temporary hit points because he's taking their blood from them. It was a rough fight. Not gonna lie, and a bunch of 17th level characters still had trouble with him, and just some regular old vampire spawns with him. But they managed to defeat him eventually after using all their 9th, 8th, and 7th level spells. So a mass
That's
heal
rough.
had to go off before they managed to
Okay, but
win.
they used their 8th, 9th, and 7th level spells. That's like 4 spells.
But like from the wizard, the bard, the warlock, and the cleric. So it was still a rough fight. But it was fun, and like I said, like his stuff is just really really good, and I don't know. There's a couple other patrons I follow that have great maps because ever since the pandemic started, I we pretty much only play online. Every now and then I play in person, and I cherish those times. But there's a number of different Patreon followers or Patreon creators that I follow: Fantasy Atlas, Lone Mapper, Mad Cartographer, and they all have really great maps to the point where like I'll find their really cool map and I will craft an encounter around this cool map because it's cool enough that I actually want to use this.
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on having a castle by the sea but you know what? This is really cool and I'm going to make it work.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
but that's what I've been into.
I'll say on the D&D side, yeah, I think this turning towards third-party creators to the point where the only thing that I use from WotC D&D is the core rules. I don't need any of their adventures or any of their other stuff because there's always better options from third-party creators that create stuff that I actually like.
Yeah.
So I've used a bunch of their stuff and follow a bunch of them, and it also is what turned me on the path to Shadowdark, which is definitely my new jam.
Yeah.
Have you actually played it yet, Christian?
I have played it in a couple of online games.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm guessing it runs beautifully.
Yeah, way faster, definitely more dangerous. It gives me that same feeling of when I first started playing D&D when I was a kid, of going,
scared of your character dying.
Yeah, there's real fear of that, and more to the point of you're thinking about, like, instead of just like let's move to the room, you're thinking about things like, how do we want to approach this? Do we want to try to sneak around this one? Do we need to go in that room? Do we need to go into this forest? Like, it's just a lot. It just feels more of the old school thing of when I first started playing.
Yeah.
And I love it.
And that unfortunately is a feeling that I only get in D&D 5e when you're in a level 1 party. Because you can just get crit and die in
Oh,
a
yeah.
session as whatever you're playing. Doesn't matter what it is. Like a CR2 monster will kill you instantly. And can. And there's no like you're level 1, you're not getting resurrected, you're not getting revivified. There's no NPC hanging around. You're making a new character if you die in that first session.
I played in a quote unquote high level Shadowdark game where people were either level 7 or 8, and our wizard was a 7th level wizard with 7 hit points.
Oh my god! Did you just roll 1 every time?
He had a negative con, so
oh my god!
So the most hit points you could ever get from a level was 1.
Oh my god!
So
terrible.
He just had 7 hit points, and that's just like a stiff breeze would knock him over. But like he played it up like he played his decided because of that. His wizard was an old man who had like gone back to wizard school like after he had already like completed a career as a farmer or whatever. But he was like, oh, I decided in my retirement to take up wizarding. But he had lost, like, his story was like he had lost the farm, and so now he has to like delve into stuff to like pay off the debt from when they had like evicted him from the farm. And
That's perfect. I love it.
It's fantastic. But yeah, it was just so neat. You're like, okay, this is like relatively high level character for this game,
Yeah, because the
Yeah.
Shadow Dark only goes to 10th level, so 7th
Only
level
goes
is
to
pretty
10.
damn high.
And you are very, very fragile, potentially.
Well, one other thing that I've noticed with the OSRs, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Shadow Dark, etc., that I had almost forgotten about. With 5th edition and even 3rd edition, everything became much more story driven. It feels like to me. So you're not technically limited in what you can do and such, but because there's a role for everything, players don't investigate everything. They don't take the time to say, I'm looking specifically above the doorway. I'm looking around the doorway. I'm looking behind every painting that's on the walls.
Yeah, but I think, Jay, that's more of
Eh,
the DM. Like,
yeah,
No, I'm aware it's not the system, but
yeah.
it's the fact that they now have roles for everything that it's sort of navigated DMs and players.
Yeah,
well,
I
maybe
think
that's a better thing for Chris to answer. I think, Dan, you and I don't see that as much because we're both old, and even though we're playing 5th edition, we still kind of play
yeah,
in the way that we
I don't
used to
yeah.
play.
Yeah, I don't just say, "Hey, the rogue entered the room." I describe the room with like a paragraph of description, and I wait until he says he's doing something. And here's what I'm gonna be like, I'm investigating. Like, what are you investigating? Are you investigating the box? Are you investigating the door? Are you investigating the walls? What are you looking for? And I make them describe, because I don't mind people saying I'm going to use my reliable talent, my investigation of plus 15 to look for stuff, but I need more information than that. And
Well, actually, I have a passive investigation of
yeah, I
24.
don't do passive investigation.
Yeah.
um, yeah, a rogue of my level would, of course, notice the traps because I'm always looking for traps. Yeah, okay, the gamers. um, yeah, I just, yeah, you're right. You're right, Jay. That it's one of those things that there's a rule for everything, but it's actually not as bad as previous system. 3.5 and Pathfinder were worse.
Yeah.
They were worse for that because they
They had
literally had
more
a roll
skills.
for everything, more skills, more feats, and it was ridiculous. You had to remember all of these things as these characters. Like, we got to the point in Pathfinder first edition where we did like the mythic level or epic level, whatever the equivalent book was, and like I had to have a spreadsheet to keep track of
Yeah,
all
we
my
had an Excel
bonuses.
spreadsheet.
Oh,
Like,
I've talked about it on here many times. We played in a 3-5 game for a long time, and we had a frenzied berserker in that
oh
party.
my god.
Um, and that I mean, frenzied berserker is dangerous for the party because
Yes.
there were many times where he killed a player. But at the same time, you sort of learn how to navigate that. But that character, we were 20th level, and I shit you not, we had a page and a half of fucking calculus just to figure out his damage when he's enraged, when he's not enraged, when he's enlarged, when he's doing this, depending on what weapon he's using. Like, it was a lot of fucking math.
Yeah,
But
I
anyhow,
mean,
Yeah, I don't
it
want
really
that.
was. Yeah, for a certain point in time, I ended up investing in the Hero Lab program, which is still sometimes used for physical games because I actually still have it loaded up on my PC. But essentially, is essentially input everything into the spreadsheet, so because you have the divine bonus, profane bonus, deflection bonus, blah 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 bonus, and then your touch AC versus your regular
yeah,
AC, and
yeah.
like it was even more complicated a decade ago. So I appreciate the simplification of 5e, and
Oh yeah,
like Christian said, it depends on your DM. If you have a new DM, yeah, you're gonna play it. You're probably gonna play it more like a video game, where it's you walk into the room, you make an investigation check. Okay, this is what you find. Whereas we're gonna be like, describe what you're looking for. I'm not gonna say, if you're looting the body, I'm not gonna make you describe where you're looting unless it's like a rope where you gotta cut them open to
yep.
get the gems or something. But yeah, uh, yeah, it really depends on the DM. I think. I think what you're getting at is that Shadow Dark impresses upon you that it's more
Oh, it very
describe what you're doing.
Because you're
yeah, it says that, if you're searching for something, tell your play if the players are searching for something, tell them they find it. Like,
well,
it's
you're also your
Yeah.
character sheet is so much more limited. You don't have like a thing to stare at to tell you what to do.
yeah.
It's on
I
you to
believe
decide what you're doing.
I believe Shadow Dark someplace in it, because it's like the only rule book I've read in a while, and I remember reading this very recently. So I'm pretty sure with Shadow Dark, it said only make the players roll when there's a chance for failure.
Mm-hmm.
Like in D&D, you always would roll for a chance. Oh, there might be something there. There might not be. Why don't you roll and find out? That happened in my game last. He's like, roll for traps. And like he's walking by. He's like, is there anything? No. And then I hit pause to pause the game so I can explain what happens as he moves onto that square. He's like, oh, big fucking god, here it is. I was like, yep. You walk onto that square, nothing happens.
And more
And then
to
I
the point,
unpause.
it's only roll when there's a consequence for failure.
Yeah.
Like if finding the trap itself doesn't have a consequence, if he looks in the right area, he finds the trap. Cool, you can do that. If you
Disarming,
try
it's
to
a different
disarm
story.
the trap, now that's different because there's probably a bad consequence if you fail to disarm it correctly.
Yeah, a lot more risk involved in that.
Yes.
So Chris, have you got anything specifically you can think of that?
Yeah, I got something really good, and it's just the black little rain cloud in me. It was the first thing that I thought of. Like, what in the last 4 years changed the way I kind of look at games, perceive some games? Honestly, it was the time I got to spend with Reverend Panda, and discussing, how he played D&D, how he built his worlds. The one game I got to play in there with him. The way he taught me how to use Incarnate and how to layer things properly and make better maps.
He was a good map maker.
He was a really good map maker. And like he was working on this big, huge, expansive world, where he had like 1,000 something grid that he was filling out slowly but surely with just full of things, and he had all these tables and whatnot. To see how he played the game so much differently than I did made me change some of the aspects in how I DM things and how I prep for things. I like to fly by the seat of my pants most of the time.
That's what I do.
Like in the game, but I still like to have like major ideas set out. But he had like charts for shops and ideas that he'd spin there, and I stole a lot of his cool ideas and used them. Unfortunately, with his passing, I can't continue to steal his ideas, but I did want to, in the 4 year, at least remember him and give him a shout out.
Yeah, he was here a lot for the first couple of years with us.
I still got all of his maps that he did for my Owl campaign, and one day when I do finish writing everything up, I will publish it and have all his stuff in that. So, looking forward to that day.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I took the energy out of the room.
I know, right?
Topic change.
Got grim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
I do have one more thing that I can add to
Sure.
things that have influenced me. Picking up Level Up. I actually haven't run Level Up, but I've used some stuff out of it, and it's something that I kind of miss from previous editions. Like for monsters, if you D&D 5e for the monster manual, you're lucky if you get a description.
Yeah.
In it, like Mordenkainen's, they have some descriptions, but like you just kind of got to look at the picture and be like, hey, this is what this guy looks like. And half the time I'm kind of lazy and I just kind of share the handout and be like, hey, you guys see these guys, and it usually has the name of whatever it is there. But for Level Up, like it'll, if you can make a 15 DC religion check, you know this. If you make a 20 DC, you know this. Make a history check DC 20, you know this.
Yes.
And it's actually interesting, and like it's something I missed from previous edition because they kind of had that built in, and I don't understand why they ever took it out of 5e.
Yeah, along with like suggested encounters and suggested like loot drops for them. Yeah, I forgot Level Up. Their monster manual is fantastic.
Yeah.
Also, their DM's guide with their hazards and
their magic
exploration.
items.
Yeah, so whenever I got this, I implemented some of these to like kind of extend the exploration difficulties of my Ram and the Frost Maiden campaign, and like included a number of different things, like trying to get on a perilous cliff path and making group checks to get through these things and see if you can survive them, and if you could survive in the flying colors, you might be able to find like a magic item that happens to be there. There's like Hoarfrost, there's hallowed ground, there's forest fires and all sorts of it's like a lot of different samples that I wish I had, like just an entire book of literally just that. And I'm a big fan of that, of those kinds of things, because it's not just, okay guys, we're just slogging along from encounter to encounter where we're going to throw down and fight stuff, which I feel like especially the by the book encounters for D&D 5e adventures are kind of built that way, which is
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
kind of
but
weak.
it adds some legs to like the exploration and the getting from place to place in adventure. That's kind of nice. It gives you some challenges there. So
Yeah.
that was cool. Speaking of which, they have their Monster Manual 2, their Monsters Menagerie 2
Ooh.
coming soon.
Oh man,
Aw.
yeah. Because when Level Up came out, I was really interested in it. I wasn't able to get physical copies, but I did buy all the PDFs from them, and I utilized those in the 5e game I was running at the time. Like
Yeah.
I added in, mostly it was just in magic items. I started pulling magic items from the 5e stuff, which gave us some really cool items that the players didn't know what they were. Had never seen stuff like that before. But the rare spells that they had in there was also a really cool little thing that I never got to use, unfortunately. But like
Yeah, I like those rare spells. Those were cool.
yeah, because there were like 3 versions of the fireball spell.
Right.
So speaking of rare things, and kind of also what's happened in the past 4 years that I use a lot now. Let's talk about AI real quick and the Slithermorph.
Oh my god.
Okay,
Ooh.
So-
I'm all here for the Slithermorph. I don't know about the AI part.
Come on, Slithermorph.
So, Chris Cox said that he is going to definitely double down on the use of AI in creating D&D content in the future.
You mean after saying that he wouldn't?
Yeah, going back in the thing that he wanted. And I was watching a YouTuber called Pro Jared, and he was playing through a game called Dungeon Hack. All right, Dungeon Hack is I think it's a revamp. I think it is a computer game that was released in 1993. And it's essentially one of the first roguelites that we would categorize this game as being. You make a character with second edition rules. You run down the dungeon as far as you can get. As far you get is as far as you can get, and that was the game.
Second edition rules, but yeah, there was,
Oh,
it was
maybe
a hack slash vaguely 3-dimensional game.
Yeah.
Have you actually played it, Dan?
I have.
Of course.
Back in 1992 or 3.
So Pro Jared has a vast knowledge of D&D. He was on some shows for a while before his internet drama kicked off and everything. But he was playing the game and got to like level 10 or 11 and encountered a monster called a Slithermorph. Now, the Slithermorph, in essence, is a black ooze that can transform itself into a 4-armed snake that just lashes out at you. And it can go back and forth as it pleases, and it heals up when it does it. It's also like immune to fire and ice and resistant to force and stuff like that. It's a crazy monster. So it's not in any like book. It was in a actual novel, okay, called
The Paladins.
Yeah, the Paladins, and I think the Monstrous Compendium sheets may have been listed there. But really, it was only in this one like little blip of a game, this blip of a novel, a tiny thing made by Ed Greenwood and forgotten at the time.
I'll interject here now that I'm looking it back up. Yeah, so it is kind of sort of second edition, but it's based on the Eye of the Beholder game series. So that's the engine built on. So it is vaguely 3-dimensional. You weren't using a mouse at that point in time. You were using you weren't even using WSAD. You're using just like the up, down, left, right.
Yes, arrow keys.
And
well, he does use the mouse because monsters drop items and he's clicking and dragging it over.
Yeah, I imagine that you can now, but at that point in time, I don't think you could. Because I actually still have a copy like on floppy disk of Eye of the Beholder 1 and 2,
Nice.
which had just at the time top-notch graphics of Kelvin Blackstaff trying to send you on a quest down below Waterdeep in order to do I don't know something hack and slash something. But yeah, Dungeon Hack was basically they took all that assets and let you just kind of go through randomly populated dungeons. But yeah, now that I'm looking at it, I core memories unlocked.
It happens to me constantly. I'm always looking.
Like, that.
I'm always looking through these old ass Dragon magazines that I've got PDFs of online now, and I see the ads for these old video games from the 90s. I'm like, shit, I forgot that even was a D&D game. Yeah.
So I guess it was only published in the Ruins of Honor Mountain 1. There were 9 monsters in there. Like there was a Beholderkin, a Death Kiss, Elder Orb, Dark Tentacles, Flying Snakes, Watch Ghost, but the Slithermorph was in that. So this is the only printing of that from that one booklet. So going to AI. When AI is asked to create content, it sucks. Like I had to use it in my game in this last Saturday because my players were working their way through a wizard college, and I needed a quick lecture on necromancy from a crazed lich necromancer that basically is all befuddled. So I basically typed that out to ChatGPT real quick and pressed enter, and it gave me a short little lecture that I could read out on stream. But it repeated a lot of things, and AI has that problem. But before or after that session, I was watching the video and I saw the Slithermorph. I was like, I really want to use this monster. And I looked up the stats. And I was like, oh man, there's nothing even for third or for fourth or nothing for fifth. I wonder if ChatGPT can convert this monster for me and make it 5th edition. So I basically gave it the website and said, okay, here's the only online version of this monster from 2nd edition. Update it for 5th edition for me. And it took like 2 minutes of its computing time. And it generated me out a CR7 Slithermorph. I was like, that's really cool. And I looked the monster over and really didn't have very many issues or anything like that. Like, I give you guys a text file earlier.
Okay, so the file you gave us is for 5th edition?
Yes. So the file I gave you guys is just a text readout.
I should have realized that with the saving throws being what they are.
So it created a CR4 monster, and it's a shape changer. It got this amorphous form. It has the 4 claw attacks that the monster has the ability to constrict. It has an acid discharge and has regeneration. Pretty much the same things that the 2nd edition monster had. The stats were kind of updated correctly. The math checks out properly. So it really is a really good 5e conversion of that monster from way back when. Then I needed to a CR7 is not good enough for like a big end boss for my group. They're level 10, 11. So I said, hey, upgrade it to CR12. And then it took that same CR7 monster that it made and updated for CR12. And I went through and read that. And it's like, that's pretty good. It added legendary actions. They updated some of the regeneration. It gave it layer actions. If you take a look at this, just in passing, is this really the use for AI that they could do? Like taking old content and making it fresh and new? Because it seemed to do this really well. I mean, I really can't see any major problems. Maybe like, it
So what
missed
you're
out on...
saying is that the CEO of Hasbro Corporation is right, and we should all listen to him.
All hail our robot overlords.
I mean,
Listen, if it gets...
be honest, they're already doing this.
Oh yeah,
they're already
probably.
And my hope is that, and I'll be slightly optimistic before I say that I don't believe this at all. But my hope is that it becomes like an internal resource where it's just something like where the developers and line developers and people there at WotC doing D&D stuff can go like, hey Siri, pull up the stats for this, or hey Siri, upgrade, like you were saying, upgrade, a Dryad to a higher CR, and it can kind of do the thing for them, and it just is a time saver, the same way you might use, if you're a developer like I am, you might use a bunch of code snippets. And this is even but pre-AI, because I don't use AI, but you use in your developer tools, a lot of times you'll pull in stuff that has snippets of code. So if you're using the same kind of thing over and over again, you can just kind of type out the first few letters and then pop in that code snippet into it, and it's just a time saver for you.
Yeah.
You're still doing the work, but you're saving time by grabbing some stuff, and like in that case, you might edit it once over it and tweak some stuff, but that would be my hope. Do I believe that's where they're going to go? No, I think they're going to try to replace human writers and people they would have to pay with AI.
I mean, I honestly think that's where he's going to go too. And there has been an issue with AI bots now basically uh, eating the same data that it's put out, and it's regurgitating even worse data now.
Yes.
And they're working on trying to fix that problem. But if they were to take it in-house, take an AI bot in-house, and then just train it on their data, let's say just for Forgotten Realms, like just the Forgotten Realms data, it would probably work very well, like in the way that I used it here and the way you just mentioned.
To
And
be
I
fair,
think,
that's what he said that they want to do, is to have an internal tool for their
Yeah.
team, and they would want to. He says they want to train it and use it ethically, and then also make people aware. I don't buy that. My other cynical hope is I hope that he's just being because when he said all this stuff, he was talking to investors.
yeah,
And investors in every company now are going to the C-suites and the people and saying, "So what are you doing with AI?"
yeah,
Every company. And so everyone has to have some sort of answer, because if they have no answer or they say no, their stock tanks and they look like they don't know what they're doing. So they have to have something to talk about AI, because it's the new hot trend until whatever the next thing comes along.
yeah. And like I said, I have used some of the tools to generate quick lists for me. Like, hey, give me a shop of 25 items from common to super
Which AI
rare.
program are you?
Mostly
I got-
Chat GPT.
I got
is what
tables for that.
Yeah, everyone's got tables for that.
I
But
got
don't.
roll tables.
Well, I can have ChatGPT do that, and usually generates some good ones. Like I used it a while ago to give me 100 different random encounters that you would
don't get to roll
face
dice.
in a city, like full of bandits and robbers, full of undead, full of starving and impoverished citizens, and the other one was like full of creatures from the Underdark, and it gave me this 4 whole lists of really cool ideas, and I had to go through and pare things down and make things better. But it was a lot faster than me just sitting down there creating a list of 100 things and
I already
then
have
trying
one
to
of
figure
those.
it out.
I
Nice.
literally have a book that's like a book of like roll tables of city encounters for every terrain, so I can just
Yeah.
roll a
Yeah.
D100 die
No,
and
no.
be like, oh,
That's what the
Okay.
Jeff Ashworth books are about.
So like,
Yeah.
yeah, like I have a book right here. I have it in my hands called Waterdeep City Encounters, which is great for normal Waterdeep City encounters, and this is perfect. I spent $10 on it, got it off of DM's Guild, used the shit out of it. But right now, Waterdeep is controlled by the Zentarum, and there's an evil green star in the sky causing undead to come out everywhere. And the Drow have taken over North Ward, and they've unleashed a bunch of Undermountain horrors upon the citizens. That's not going to be in that book. So I needed something very specific for when they were crawling through the water deep in the hex grid to basically, come up with random things. So in using it like that, it's been very helpful. I did as a joke. I asked ChatGPT to generate for me a monster that has never been created before. Okay. And I just sent you the text file for that. It came up with a monster called the Chimera Forge, which at first I'm like, that's probably been made before. It sounds too obvious. It had to have been created by some kid in a basement someplace. I'll read the description. The Chimera Forge is a massive, ever-shifting amalgamation of different creatures, elements, and objects. It resembles a twisted, pulsating mass of intertwined forms that constantly change and merge and separate. At one moment, it may have a wolf's head with bat wings protruding from its back. The next, it could sprout metallic claws and serpentine tails made of fire. Its form
They
is
changed
never.
the name. I'm gonna interrupt you right here. They changed
Yeah.
the name, but this is definitely the bugbear bat. That's all I'm saying. It's bugbear bat right here.
So what
It's-
ChatGPT did for creating a monster that's never been thought of before, it went, you know what? Let's take everything that's ever existed and roll it into one thing.
Yeah, and my curiosity is, if somebody else had asked it before you that exact same question, is this what it spouted out to them?
The problem is I went to ask it, hey, create me another monster that's never been thought up before, and it said that I reached my data limit for the month. So
you gotta pay now. What's interesting is that they actually first off did something that D&D 5e doesn't give you, a description.
Yeah.
Second, gives you actually some information, some origin information.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually give you any stats other than like a couple of its special abilities. It doesn't give you AC, hit points. It doesn't give you like what this thing is, how to fight it. It gives you some of its cool abilities, which are more actually descriptive. Like I might, bring up to somebody if somebody made a research check or a history check or something on what is this thing that people are describing, and like, oh, it's the legend says the Chimera Forge was created by an ancient forgotten god of chaos who wished to create the ultimate embodiment of unpredictability, because that's what chaos is as far as AI is concerned. The entity threw everything it could find, creatures, elements, even parts of the landscape, into a magical forge, fusing them into one horrifying creature. And you know what, you kind of joked that like this was created in the basement by some kid. That kid's pretty fucking cool, is all I'm saying. This is actually kind of a pretty nice monster.
Yeah, I was actually quite impressed. I was like, I'm pretty sure someone's made the Batman Wolverine Gambit hybrid before.
Crossover. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's just pretty much exactly what a teenager would make when he first got really hyped up and read the Dungeon Master Manual the Monster Manual for the first time. I was like, this is my cool, unique monster. Like, yeah, it is, boy. Yeah, it is. He did such a great job. But
But yeah, but I like how like this is actually kind of formatted. To be honest, it says at the bottom it says encounter tips. Fighting the Chimera Forge requires adaptability. Players must be ready to counter its ever-changing abilities and find a way to exploit its weaknesses by combining different elemental attacks. I mean, that to me, like I could take this and actually create a monster out of this
Yeah.
that is stated correctly. Like, the first round I'm rolling a D8. It's like, okay, it has like it has more water based properties. It's going to be vulnerable to fire and take half or less damage from everything else. And then the next round is acid or whatever. I
yeah,
think you could build off of that, and that's
Dan,
something that I think I agree with AI with. Like, it's a starting point. It's
yeah,
not like I'm not going to run to the roll 20 and slap this in here. I'm going to modify it and create it into something
this
that's
this
useful.
monster is literally one of our LARP field battles.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's a LARP field battle. Is
Like
what it is.
that's what it is. The first 10 minutes or so, it only takes fire damage. The next 10 minutes, it only takes ice. The next
Yeah.
10 minutes,
Everybody run
lightning.
away, get into circles so they can change into lightning monster. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But and that's great and all, but like the way it's formatted, I do agree with. And uh, it is actually a good starting point for something.
hmm it really
Uh,
is.
And if you're stuck, if you have just like I have enough information. Like I had a long day at work. I don't really feel like trying to find something I can just reskin for my game. I don't know, the Chimera Forge. What is this thing? That would give me enough to be like, okay, I can stat this thing. I
Yeah,
can throw some hit points and AC at this, and make a couple of different versions of it for maybe little method versions of it, and then the actual big version of it. That's kind of neat. Not gonna lie, that is kind of neat. And but is that what WotC's doing with it? Because we saw the bullshit that came out with what Big B's Giants and the
yeah,
AI art that was in there,
Hmm.
and people being like, oh, no, it's actually my original art that I just kind of AI like smoothed out, blah blah blah. I'm like,
Which we can see where you
no
stole
you
the parts from
no
other
you
places.
didn't, no you didn't. And
yeah.
maybe it's WotC that did it. Maybe it was their independent contractors they hired. Who knows?
Oh, that one was definitely the contractor used AI and just didn't tell them. He
Yeah.
passed it off as his own, and then he was confronted, he admitted that yes, I used AI in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'm really worried about too is that WotC is going to make an adventure book that's 100% AI and with very little editing or human touch to it, and then push it out without telling anybody, and
Yeah.
then seeing how people react, and if it's positive, but like, see, haha, you do like AI.
No, you didn't
Yeah,
know that it was
For
it.
you know what, for D&D Beyond, I absolutely think that they will.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I think that they will start it off there, and they will put stuff on D&D Beyond so they can, the stuff that they can nickel and dime you, $5 for a few more monsters, or this
yeah,
short adventure, or this
Yeah.
encounter. They'll charge you for it, and that stuff will be AI generated, and they'll see how you deal with it and see if it makes money. If it does, they'll keep doing it.
So
Right.
I had ChatGPT convert that monster into 5e
Oh, you're out
stat.
of data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I was too. I decided to give it a shot. It didn't,
Mhm.
but it actually typed it up pretty well.
Oh yeah, look
Um,
at that.
Yeah.
Like it works for stuff like that, you know.
Not what I would have used, but I mean,
I got
Yeah.
plenty of monster books from people that I would happily use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, that's what's going to happen. Is that the AI is eventually going to Ouroboros itself. It's going to start eating its own tail, regurgitating the same stuff for a while, and then 20 years later, people will go, "What happened to the good old days when music wasn't made with with real instruments and actual talent, not robot overlords?" The same thing's going to happen with this. It's like, when can we have like a person write a story? Can that be a thing?
So here's the thing. Like, I don't think I mind, people coming up with monster stats and stuff like that. I'm not. I can. AI is to the point where I can definitely spot this sort of shit that it is AI, especially with art.
Oh yeah.
And I'm definitely never going to use AI art in something I publish. But if I can't find a good piece of art that I've already purchased or found on the internet for something that I've thought of, and I just want to throw it in my personal game that nobody's going to see except for my players, yeah, I'll AI art that shit.
Yeah.
I'm
I,
not
I
I'm not opposed to that, but also not selling it on the internet or
yeah.
making
Yeah,
prints of it or anything like
that's
that.
the thing, is this is a multi-billion-dollar company that is going to sell you stuff that is made
Yeah.
with this, and that I don't like. Now, I don't mind if a D&D designer decides that, hey, I know I want a monster that is this CR, that looks like this, that is this type of creature, and kind of feed some stuff into their own internal AI to get a basis and then edits it around.
Yeah.
I don't mind that as much. If it's like an internal tool, then it's at that point it becomes developer tools.
And
Yeah.
my preference would be whenever they come out with the DMG next year for 5e 2024 or whatever we're calling it, is that
Five R.
they actually have better rules for creating monsters and figuring out what
Yeah.
CR that is.
Yeah.
Because like, I guesstimate based on other similar CR creatures, like, yeah, my party should be able to handle this CR6 or something like that. But it also doesn't matter to me either because I'm not giving them XP. They're leveling up based upon when they accomplish goals. So it doesn't really matter what the CR is, so long as they can handle it and it's challenging and fun. I don't really care.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no faith that they're going to be able to fix their challenge rating system
Yeah,
with the new
because
edition.
What
as
also
as
falls
written,
apart.
it is technically okay if you're playing PHP 2014 base classes, base book, no additional feats or that are quote unquote optional in 2014, and you only have a 4-person party.
Yeah, with
Those
exactly
CR,
4 people.
yeah,
If you have
exactly.
less
You
than
add
4
one more
people
person, or you're
or
using
more than
Tasha's,
4 people,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
which
it
of
So
falls
course every
apart.
game I've ever played in is more than 4 people. Every game.
Oh yeah.
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 So speaking of, since you mentioned what we're calling it, I've been calling it 5R now, and this podcast was a 5th edition podcast about D&D 5e. We're now a D&D 5R because I have played my first 5R Dungeons and Dragons game.
What?
I believe you mean it is a D&D 5e legacy and 5R game.
Oh, okay.
Because I had 2 players tonight still using we're still in 5e, and all their legacy content, whenever they popped it up, it just said in parentheses legacy for everything that they cast. So
Oh my
legacy was
god.
for 2014, so it specifically showed that they were still using the old content.
Yeah,
Hey bro. Hey bro. Update. Get
there
with the new stuff.
there
Yeah,
is
I'm
an
sure they're getting pop-ups for it.
there is an issue with D&D Beyond's database where they quickly went through and labeled everything that was 2014 as legacy. It wasn't a big deal when they did it with the monster manuals shift over from Volos and Mordenkainen's to the new Mordenkainen's book, because those monsters were actually very different, you know?
Yeah, they are. They are.
So you could look at both of them and say, okay, I like this one better, you know? And
Which
I've
I
added,
absolutely did.
yeah. And now that I have the MCDM book and I have Cobalt Press's books and I got the Humblewood books, and now I have, like, I look up Cobalt and I see it 4 different Cobalts. The Legacy one, the new one, MCDM's Cobalt, and Cobalt Press is Cobalt.
And
I'm
they're
like, okay,
all wrong.
they're all different. I'm like, okay, I like this one as the Cobalt boss, and I like this one better. You know, I like having the options, but when it comes to the rules, there's a lot of rules that didn't change. So, like saying that it's legacy and here's a new rule, and they're both the exact same thing, like you kind of need to condense that, which we'll leave that up to them to figure that out. But I played my first 5-hour game. Watsy gave my local gaming store, Energy Gamers here in Charleston, a module adventure called Uni and the Hunt for the Lost Horn. And they gave me some D&D 50th anniversary dice, 50th anniversary keychains, and I got to have people come into the store, check out the new player's handbook, sell them on it, tell them what was different and stuff like that. And we got to play through the module. The module itself was really fun. It's pretty short, 3 to 4 combat encounters. And it pretty much basically takes the characters from the 80s cartoon show, makes them adults, being brought back into the world of Dungeons and Dragons because their unicorn Uni has been kidnapped. And the evil wizard Kellic has bopped it on the head and stolen its magical unicorn. And he's going to use that horn to usurp Wenger from his place of power and basically overthrow him. That's the story. And then you play the characters, you rescue Uni, you go into Crystal Ball, you defeat Kellic, you get the horn, and you escape by the skin of your teeth before the crystal orb shatters.
Before Tiamat shows up.
Well, I think the players joked, and it's like, man, these guys became adults and are only level 4. It's like they were about to die a few times because I wasn't going easy on them. They had these super overpowered magic weapons. Yeah, because like that's what they have.
Right, because they have super overpowered magic weapons.
So they are almost TPK'd. I fireballed them and acid splat like this giant acid orb them, and they're about to die. They make like these kids are sure getting their asses kicked. It's like, hey, sorry, one of them was like, hey, when does the Dungeon Master show up to save us? It's like the Dungeon Master sent them against Tiamat when they were level 1, 40 years ago. He ain't gonna show up to help you. He does not care about your safety. And for all intents and purposes, the new Cloud of Daggers spell was used, and that was pretty cool. The weapon masteries is as bad as I thought it would be. Because whenever a player gets Vex on it, they don't remember that they have Vex on it. Or
better players.
But that was a problem with 4th edition. It's like you would stack on all these status effects on players, and they would forget because too much is going on, or they would forget to interrupt or some shit like that.
You know what? I don't feel sorry for players that don't remember the single thing that they did to the NPC.
Yeah,
that's on them. A DM has to control a number of monsters, run the dang game, and then also be an encyclopedia of every spell and ability that is going on. So I don't feel bad if people forget their stuff.
Yep.
At all.
I do. Okay, I do. I feel bad.
You know, that's fair.
Yeah.
Remind them a couple of times, but man, like if you're like 3 games in, they are still forgetting the thing that is on their sword or
I mean, this is the first game, so it's not like they
everybody's new on the first game, but maybe that's just something you say at the very beginning of each session is, hey guys, you got to remember your own stuff. When you do something to a monster, it's on you to remember it. I got too much to remember.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. It's like, oh, I forgot the Bardic Inspiration was on me. I forgot I had Bless when I was rolling the thing. It just falls into that category for me, you know? Yeah. Like in my Saturday game, I even marked the players who had Bless on, okay? Mm-hmm. And they were not using Bless for their attack rolls or their saves. I wasn't reminding them either. And they needed those things to not die, and they were still forgetting. I'm like, I don't know how to do more, like other than like really handhold you. And
you know, I try to like at least for the first couple of rounds of combat, we'll be like, don't forget this, don't forget that. But like if you've been playing for characters for a long time, and these are abilities that you should remember, I mean, that's on y'all.
The only time I get a little bit on it is when because when you're playing between sessions, like if you stop someplace and you have effect on you or something, and then you don't play again for 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, like when you remember that you guys had a hero's feast from
I remember that
3
we had
weeks
Heroes Feast,
before,
but it's been 3
after
weeks.
I had
since
already
we
dropped a
played.
cloud kill in the party and people were
Yeah.
down and yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little different only because the time frame. Now, if we had just gotten the Hero Feast that session, and Dan would have been well within his rights to be like, "Nah, man, you should have remembered it. That's on you."
Yeah.
Yep, we're not
Which I
going
would have
back.
agreed.
Yeah,
To which I would have agreed if I already made the save and failed it and took the effects and stuff, and then remembered it 2 rounds later. That's my fault.
Yeah, we're not backtracking 3 rounds for you to re-roll shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the
Yeah.
same thing like when you're playing remotely and like, there's the guy that doesn't have his camera on, his mic's muted, and like you get to his turn initiative, he's not there. Like, okay, if he's not here in the next 30 seconds, I'm skipping his turn.
What is that? It never happens to me, man.
Never happens
Jesus.
to you. You play on a stream though, and you have everybody
Yeah.
has their cameras on. My games, like tonight, everybody had their cameras on, but on my Friday night game, like maybe Christian has his camera on,
Zach
maybe,
usually do.
but like,
Usually,
and you can just tell that they're all out tabbed out, looking at something. Hell, they might even be playing Baldur's Gate 3 while they're trying to play D&D. I'm like, stop
And
multitasking. Come
and
on.
I peep our Steam friends thing because I will call someone out if I see one of our crew on Steam or something like that.
Yeah.
that right there is exactly why I don't play online. Because when the times I played online, that was me because I'm bored.
Yeah, that's fair.
So you're all problem players. Get the hell out of my game.
But I mean, you know what? That's the same thing at a table. At the table, you've got somebody with a freaking phone underneath the table doing their thing.
I call them out for it.
Yeah, if they are ignoring, not paying attention, and I have to wait on them, I definitely will,
If-
especially in person.
If you're in combat and it's going to be a while before it gets back to your turn, I don't give a shit if you're on your phone. I don't.
Yeah.
If you're going to have to interact in that combat, then I need you paying attention.
Mhm.
Like if you're just a fighter and you have no reactions, you have nothing else coming up. Okay, do whatever the fuck you want, but make sure you are here before your turn and have an idea of what's going on during the rest of the round.
Yeah.
So anyway,
So yeah, it was the same. I forgot to use the new surprise rules in the campaign, but
that's because they suck. Use the old ones.
I don't love the old surprise rules. I'm not.
I didn't
sad
either,
to
but
see them
they're the new ones aren't good though.
the problem with the new surprise rules, and I explained it at the table too, is like you're just going to end up in a situation that I hate that normally happens anyways, where all the players go, and then all the monsters go, and then all the players go, and then all the monsters go, and I really hate that back and forth that happens. I like it when it's more intermixed, and I'll kind of like manually do that on my side. Like, okay, 3 players, then the fast monster, or I'll have the fast monster go first, and then spice things up, because having a very static players go, then monsters go is very boring. So I don't like the new surprise rules. I like pushing them. I like having everything spread out and having advantage. Plus, players usually have higher initiative because they spec out that way. It's always going to be that they're always going to go first, and the monsters always go second.
Unless you're in Solasta.
Well, I actually kind of like how Baldur's Gate 3 did it, where they don't use
It's not a D20, yeah.
It's not a D20 for the roll, it's a D4, and then they add the initiative bonus on top of that, and it spreads things out a little bit better. Which I don't know if that works at the table.
That basically creates the problem that you just were describing, wherein the PCs are going to be typically spec'd out to have high dexterity or initiative or alertness or whatever in order to go first. And like, since it's only a D4 or whatever in Baldur's Gate 3, 9 times out of 10, all of the Baldur's Gate PCs will go before all the monsters.
That's true.
Which basically is always a devastating thing, because you'll have the barbarian go in there and slaughter like 3 guys. The wizard will drop a fireball, and then the cleric will run through and clean up with the rogue. And that's the combat's typically over before it's even started. So
Yeah.
I actually don't like the Baldur's Gate method. I like the bit of randomness where even as like a 15th level rogue with a really super high dexterity, I can still roll a 1 and go on an 8.
I wish Baldur's not Baldur's Gate. I wish D&D Beyond. It does let you auto roll initiative for everybody.
Yeah.
And players roll this if it shows up. I wish every time I went to the next round, there was an option to basically re-roll everyone's initiative automatically.
I used to have a combat roller for
Yeah.
my in-person games that I
Yeah.
always have a laptop there, and I did that for a while until it got cumbersome, and I was like, I don't feel like doing this again, guys.
But if
But
D&D
it did make
Beyond's handling it,
it did make people pay more attention because
Yeah.
they're in a different initiative every round.
Yeah, even online, I feel like it might get cumbersome after a bit.
yeah, it may be, but at least it's handling that automatically for me. That's all I care about sometimes. So getting off my new 5R game, did you guys see that there's a special edition of the Times that came out this week with Dungeons and Dragons on the cover?
Like
You mean Time Magazine?
Yeah.
They're still in
New York
business?
Times.
Yes. Did I say New York Times?
You said The Times.
The Times.
Super
Okay,
right.
well, just Time Magazine then.
Okay.
It's an entire booklet about Dungeons and Dragons that goes through their history and everything like that. The articles are pretty well written. They're not AI generated.
Maybe.
Yeah.
The name of their article is "The Magic of Dungeons and Dragons Can Save Us, but Only If You Let It." And it's actually a good article. I don't know if it's different for.
This book contains the storied roots, the game's journey, mapping the story, the Titans of Tabletop, Stranger Things series, who is Vecna, Thieves Making Magic, While We'll Always Love Dice, the video game link, the many partnerships, therapy and play, the magic of D&D Can Save Us, and draconic measures. So all different articles. The whole book. I didn't get. I just got this today. So I didn't get a chance to really go through and read all the articles yet. I'm really interested about the Vecna one.
I kind of want to go and find one of those.
Yeah, I'm looking at the one that I just found on Time. This is actually from last year, but it looks like it has some of the actors from Stranger Things playing D&D.
Yeah.
Jack Black's in there playing D&D. A ton of different actors that know and love. So yeah, I'll see if I can find the copy of that.
Yeah.
I do actually hold on a second. Yeah, actually, is it the one with the green dragon on the front of it?
No, it's got a blue D20.
That's interesting. There's another one that has a green dragon on the front of it.
Okay, yeah, the one you can get the one with the D20 on it on eBay right now for $15.
Of course you can.
So I was reading through a little bit of this, and this is going to be a fun thing for Kristian to see if he knows this little bit of trivia. It's part about the D&D's rise and fall and rise again before Gygax, while Gygax is still a part of TSR. After a series of layoffs in 1985, Gygax hired businesswoman Lorraine Williams.
I've read this story.
Williams could see the company's potential, and in October of that year, she went behind Gygax's backs, purchasing his partner's share, which made her the majority shareholder. Fed up and feeling betrayed, Gygax, who felt like the company was being taken over by non-gamers, sold his own shares in 1985 and officially left TSR. The company culture changed under Williams, and many gamers have blamed her for just about everything bad that happened to TSR. She was notoriously tough and rarely interacted with employees on the creative side. She was not always in touch with what we did, but she was very loyal. Her reputation was so great and almost mythologicalized, where people were afraid to say no to her. Jim Falone, director of sales and marketing at TSR, said in his D&D historian Ben Riggs' 2022 book, Slaying the Dragon, A History of Dungeons & Dragons, there were even rumors that she was the model of the Lydia Payne character for the Planescape setting.
Hilarious.
Did you know that, Kristian?
Yeah, I have heard
Mr.
that rumor.
Planescape?
Yeah, I have actually heard that I did know. I've heard that rumor that she was potentially as her, her being so aloof and never interacting.
Oh, yeah. I could see it. One of the many artists at that time period running with that. Absolutely,
it's the writers, really. Zeb Cook, Monty Cook, and them that were the old guard there that were writing Planescape. Yeah.
Yeah. So it actually looks like it's got a lot of really cool articles in it. It's got the really cool timeline. This is pretty much the stuff that I wanted in the when
Have
I was
you
wanting
guys?
that.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was really wanting like it's just a history of the company and stuff like that. So I'm really glad I have this.
Well,
Props out to my wife for getting it for me.
have you read Michael Whitwer's book called Empire of Imagination?
No.
Mm-mm.
It is Empire of Imagination, Gary Gygax and the Birth of Dungeons and Dragons, and it is basically an unauthorized biography of this guy Michael Whitwer, who's an actor, actually a pretty famous actor who plays D&D, who did essentially a research paper that then turned into a full-fledged book, and he has an entire chapter called "The Trojan Horse," chapter 34 in this book that talks about Lorraine Williams and her takeover, her hostile takeover. But it also talks about Gygax going to Hollywood, doing a shitload of coke, and doing
Yeah.
trying to get D&D movies made along with the D&D cartoon, and just spending basically his family's fortune that he had earned that on all sorts of stupid shit that he shouldn't have been spending it on, and
Yes, it's
um,
said in here 70 company cars and $1.5 million dollars in furniture.
mhm.
Woo,
Yep,
that's a lot of
in the
furniture.
80s,
That's a lot of cars.
Yeah.
yeah.
Why do you need 70 company cars for like a
70 company cars to try to get D&D movies made.
Yeah. So yeah, I highly recommend Empire of Imagination. It was a great read.
I will
You can
have to
see
get that.
you can see some of that information in Art and Arcana, but it really just covers the art side of it. I think it's actually Michael Whitwer's actually a co-author of that one, but I'll drop a link in Facebook for you guys. I read it at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was a great read.
well,
And
put it in our podcast chat channel so everyone else can come see.
okay,
Empire of
Yeah, you're on
Imagination.
a podcast
I
now.
see it. I see it.
Yeah.
it's got a great the art. The cover art is fantastic too. It's just Gygax sitting in front of his typewriter, surrounded by all kinds of stuff that you would see later on in his games, and just trying to type up Dungeons and Dragons. And it
A
like
strange pile of white powder.
yeah, strange pile of white powder. Yeah, it's definitely a worthwhile read, for sure.
I mean, hey, it was the 70s and 80s. Just talk to Stephen King about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was buried in the same pile.
Oh yeah, every writer from that time period was buried in that same pile. Nowadays, they just do it legally. It's not coke. It's basically ADHD meds.
So
Yep.
I not to derail the conversation, but how could anyone ever use a typewriter? Maybe it's because I never used one or learned to use one.
Because
I
computers
always
weren't an
grew up
option
in
then,
word
man.
processing, but my God, to be able to have to be perfect with your sentence and your spelling, F that, man.
Yeah,
If that wasn't
that's
for that red
My
squiggly
first
line,
typing class was on typewriters in middle school.
same. Yeah.
oh, I didn't.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank
Um,
God.
but yeah, because he was writing in the 60s and early 70s. There weren't word processors then.
Chris, have you ever heard of this invention called whiteout?
Oh my God.
Nope, I don't use pen and paper. I use digital.
I will say I still use whiteout to this day, just because I'm an architect, and I don't actually use like the little brush version of whiteout that you're thinking of, Jay. I use like there's a tape version of whiteout.
Yes. Yeah, I've
And
used
so
it
it's
before.
and
Yeah.
it's so much cleaner because
Mhm.
but the whiteout with a little brush will make you freaking high. It's like aerosolized and
Yeah, I don't generally like the brush whiteout because it leaves streaks and everything. Yeah, it's not as good.
I use that little whiteout tape to make funny things on colored paper.
yeah, that's fair.
That's a new art style right
Okay,
there.
you guys all have homework now. Read or listen to on Audible Empire of Imagination. It's fantastic.
Seems
Um,
like something worth checking out.
Yeah.
and you get to listen. I mean, you get to read about Gygax, all his flaws, who he stole from, who he drew all of his influences from, and he's just a guy who really loved gaming.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
That
he's one of us.
reminds me.
you know,
There
he
was
had a lot of flaws, just like everybody does, but some of his maybe got amplified by becoming suddenly incredibly rich and then doing a lot of coke. So, you know.
That actually reminds me, there's a paragraph in here about in the press. In the late 1977, TSR received a letter from the licensing company that controlled some of the rights to writer J.R.R. Tolkien's intellectual property. It posed objections to TSR using certain mythological creatures such as Hobbit, Balrog, and Ent, saying they infringe on the copyright. Instantly, Gygax was not a fan of Tolkien's work. "Quote unquote, it was so dull. I mean, there was no action in it. I like to throttle Frodo."
So interestingly enough, Jay probably is aware of this, and Christian too. But I think it was a Fiend Folio, Jay, that had the Cthulhu mythos in it.
Yeah.
Before
Yeah,
Lovecraft
yeah, oh, yeah.
Estate issued a cease and desist because they basically statted out the Cthulhu mythos, and then they said, "Nope, we still control this, and you didn't ask us, so it's copyrighted." So you can actually find there's probably several thousands of them out there. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of them. I see them on eBay and in other groups all the time for sale. They're definitely more valuable than the other versions of it. That being said, nowadays Cthulhu has hit
Public
commons.
domain, yeah.
Yeah, public domains, so you can just do whatever the hell you want with it. I'll definitely listen into the Empire of Imagination. Yeah, you're mentioning that he got super wealthy all of a sudden, and just sort of went nuts. It sounds a lot like what happened to George R.R. Martin.
Yeah, spot up a whole
Sounds like
bunch of
what happens
theaters
to
and
a lot of actors, like Nicolas Cage, who got super wealthy.
Oh my
and
God,
bought
yeah,
a bunch of islands and random crap, and then
haunted house in New Orleans.
and then
he had I don't remember, what is it, like 32 houses or something like that. It was a ridiculous amount.
Yeah, the Superman #1 comic too.
Yeah, it turns out when you aren't used to having a lot of money, then all of a sudden you have access to a lot of money. Sometimes you go a little bit crazy.
That's why most people who win the big lottery are broke within like 5 years.
Yeah.
So we've reached the hour, but as a final topic,
I have one other final topics, so two topics, I guess.
No, well, okay, well, let's go over to Tarrasque.
Oh, okay, so it is. It is my topic.
Oh my God!
Since I missed the epic Roper conversation, we were going to talk about the Tarrasque this time.
You read the entry. Do Ropers poop?
Oh no, I talked about it. I guess last week. It's not definitive. It just simply states that they can digest literally everything except for gems and platinum, basically, and like high-end metals.
Yeah, when they die, you loot that stuff, so really nothing leaves them.
Yeah, it's sort of like they don't spit the gems out, they don't spit the metals out. So my assumption is they don't spit or poop anything out. But it wasn't absolutely positive. So I got to digging because me and Waples got to talking about the the ecology of the Tarrasque. Well, sure as shit, there is a Dragon Magazine issue 359 has ecology of the Tarrasque in it. And I had to go read through this thing, and I'm going to be honest, I'm actually really kind of disappointed in the ecology of the Tarrasque. I know I think it's like 5 or 6 pages in here. And there's a couple of cool things in here. That one is you were talking about Level Up having the what do you know with knowledge checks, and it actually has that for the Tarrasque, a DC 30 knowledge check. And this, I guess, was probably 3rd edition. Yeah, it would have been 3rd edition. But 30 is still pretty high. You would know that it's a Tarrasque. At a 45, you would know a lot more about it. So you're going to have to be damn high level to even know what the fuck a Tarrasque is. The other thing that was in here that I actually didn't know, and this was literally the only thing in this whole damn article I was not aware of, but did you know that the Tarrasque actually has 3 separate stomachs?
I did know that, actually.
Okay.
I don't know why I knew that,
but I feel like it was described in the actual OG Monster Manual.
It might have been. I haven't read the OG Monster Manual in forever.
Good news. I got a PDF. Hold on a second. Look it up.
Oh, okay. While you look it up, I will go over what the differences in the 3 stomachs are. So the uppermost stomach is a hot, wet place of tumbling stones and internal spines. that breaks down large objects. Its walls are durable and very strong, with moving knots of muscle that can literally punch, squeeze, and claw at swallowed items. It can shatter large rocks into smaller stones, break clods of earth into scattered motes, etc. The middle stomach is a churning, energetically pulsing, fleshy cauldron of corrosive acid. Unique in all the planes, this fluid possesses a disjunctive property capable of stripping the magical powers from consumed magic items. And the last stomach is a long, winding, rhythmically thrumming tube of great heat where anything that survives the previous stomachs, typically only the strongest and rarest metals, meets its end.
Hmm.
So if it has 3 stomachs, it's got to poop somehow. Just saying. But it even says the acidic slurry boils off and is the acidic slurry boils off and is absorbed by the creature. So it doesn't poop apparently. It just gets to the third stomach and then it just absorbs it all.
Yeah, and what's funny too is that someone actually made a map of the inside of a Tarrasque as a module, like
Of course they did.
building
Hell
pierce
yeah.
its side and everything. It's
Mhm.
actually a pretty well famous battle map. It's very well done, but it doesn't have 3 stomachs, and it does have a rectum. So
Well, they are incorrect. That map is no longer right.
I put it in the podcast chat so you
Per
can take a
Dragon
look at it.
Magazine 322 or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
All right, hold on a sec. So I looked in Monster Manual 2nd edition AD&D. No, it does not show anything about the stomachs. Not sure where the hell I learned about it, but
Could
of
have
course
been Dragon Magazine.
it could have been. I could have actually read the Dragon magazine, but it's talk about uh, it does talk about the upper portion treated with acid, then heated in a furnace, is thought to yield gems, 10d10 diamonds of 1,000 base value each. The underbelly material mixed with the creature's blood and adamantite is said to produce a metal that can be forged by master dwarven blacksmiths into 1d4 shields of +5 enchantment. It takes 2 years to manufacture each shield, and the dwarves aren't likely to do it for free. It's hoped that Tarrasque is a solitary creation, blah, blah, blah. So it basically tells you what you can make out of this thing if you
Yeah.
actually manage to fucking
That's
kill it.
cool. Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. I did crack open the 3rd edition Monster Manual as well, and I mean, I'm going to just reiterate that I love the fact that the old editions of Monster Manual would give you an actual description. The scaly biped seems about as tall as a 5-story building. It carries itself like a bird of prey, leaning well forward and using its powerful, lashing tail for balance. It has 2 horns on its head and a thick, reflective carapace on its back. Like, nowhere in the freaking 5th edition Monster Manual do you have a description of anything of anything.
Yep.
Level up advance 5e.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I just want to point out that in the Throne of Bloodstone, you get a description of this is the Tarrasque. That's the description. So
Well,
Excellent.
in 3rd edition, you will be happy to know that there's the swallow whole ability and tells you how many creatures it can swallow. Which, by the way, the Tarrasque gullet can hold 2 huge, 8 large, 32 medium, 128 small, or 512 tiny or smaller creatures. It's just going to eat an entire village of gnomes. Like they're all going down.
yeah, all
It's
at
like a
once.
whale with the sprites just the whole
Yeah.
village is gone.
Oh my god, that's
How many
hilarious.
Smurfs can fit in it?
I mean, those are tiny creatures.
512.
512, yeah, absolutely.
So this Dragon magazine also does have the stats for an advanced Tarrasque.
Mm-hmm.
The Tarrasque is widely held as the toughest monster in Dungeons and Dragons, despite there being creatures in the Monster Manual of higher challenge ratings. Not to
Why do you
mention,
need an advanced Tarrasque?
let me finish. Not to mention dozens of other deadlier beasts in other books, as the Tarrasque can be advanced to have any number of hit dice. Presented here as a challenge rating 30 version of it. It has an armor class of 40. This is for 3rd edition. AC 40 is high as hell.
Yeah.
And it has 1,539 hit points.
Oh my god.
You know what? I'm using that unison 5e. 1,000.
I don't know that I've ever seen a monster with that many hit points in 3rd edition.
Mm.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's 78 hit dice.
I will say that when you have a monster with that many hit points, it actually gets boring to fight.
Oh yeah.
Like it just is. Like, okay, what do you do on your turn? Okay, try to hit it again. Okay, it regenerates most of the damage you did. Okay, keep going.
Well,
Keep going.
especially in 3rd edition, since you're a fighter and you have 8 attacks a round.
Right.
Yeah, but a monster like that, you're not supposed to fight it. You're supposed to contain its damage that it does and shoo it away. Like that's the point, you know.
Yeah.
Unless you're fighting it in 5th edition, you just beat his ass.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Godzilla. It's like the humans always try to fight Godzilla and fight.
You and Godzilla. Oh my god.
Yeah, you can't do that, man. You gotta flash a light at it, make the seagull sound, and lure it away. That's all you gotta do. That's
pray you don't get eaten in the process.
Bring it to the Antarctica, push it in an iceberg, and you'll be fine.
All right. Well, that is all the topics I had. I think we're done here.
Yeah, 400 episodes. Woohoo!
No, not yet. Not yet. We got about 4 more years.
4 years, 200 episodes.
Whatever.
Just getting
Same
ahead of
thing.
myself.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Next up, the ecology of the exozachinal.
Hey, spell that for me and I'll look it up.
Yeah, let's. I mean, we really just need to hit up every Dragon magazine ecology. So,
That's what I've been doing. I've just been going through them. I have to know how everything poops and how it mates. All the important things in this podcast.
Yeah, you're just being ready to role play whatever weird scholar at Candlekeep you have to role play the next time your players drop some weird random shit. It's like, oh, what happens with like a roper? How do they mate? It's like, well, actually, I know exactly how they do that.
Yep. Did you know that the Etten has a gestation period of 4.5 months?
Yes.
Oh my God! Iziktatal killed Steve Irwin. No,
no.
bastard!
All right, I think we're out of here. Bye,
All
Craig.
All right. Good night.